Welcome to The Source with your host, Dr. C.T. Curry, and co-host Coby Owens. News all across the nation. The Source. Stay in the loop in the city of Wilmington, Delaware. Work together for change in the community. A call to action to find the resources. The Source, the latest in news.
Good evening. This is Dr. Curry.
This is Coby Owens.
And welcome to The Source. Coby, it has been a week that is very interesting. One, about my predictions. I'm just horrible at this, and I thought I was so good at it, but I'm not even going to talk about that to the end of the show. I'm glad to report that we don't really have any shootings in the city for last week thus far. We are recording a little bit earlier in the week, but we do know that there was a fatal hit and run that happened on Maryland Avenue. What do we know about that?
Yeah, so on Monday morning around 5 a.m. in the morning, actually, a young 15-year-old Shariah Patterson was hit by a car while trying to cross the lane at the lower Oak Hill Street and Maryland Avenue intersection. There is video of this, and the video appears to show a car speeding in the opposite lane and striking her, and then drove off. A few days later, they were able to recover the vehicle in the individual who was driving about 8 miles away from the accident. The driver, the suspect, is Elijah Davis. He's 22 years old. He's being charged with manslaughter, leaving the scene of a collision resulting in a death, failure to stop at a red light, driving at an unreasonable speed, and driving in a non-passing zone. So again, he went into the opposite lane at excessive speed, ran a red light, and unfortunately took the life of a young 15-year-old Wilmington resident.
Now, do they say what time about? I know it was early morning, but I know
5 a.m.
So 5 a.m. in the morning. What, you think she was on her way to school, or that's very early in the morning? I know I'm not trying to change the reality that the young lady is gone, but I'm trying to figure out now. He's speeding in the opposite lane. Was he passing something?
That I don't know. I haven't watched the video.
Yeah.
There was a Facebook page that did post the video, unfortunately, that a lot of people was not happy to see. But again, I don't know why she was out there. It is very early in the morning.
Yeah.
But again, I feel so sorry for her family.
Yes.
And hopefully, I haven't seen the family put out any statements just yet.
Now, she was 15 years old. This gentleman, 22, and is he from that community? No,
he's from Bear. He lives in Bear, and that's where the police found him, was able to arrest him without incident, and also recover the car as well too.
Now, is he pleading not guilty? Is he saying that he wasn't driving? Was it his car? I'm asking you a lot of questions because people are asking these questions. I'm not saying you did all the investigative work on it. We only get what was given to the public, but they were able to identify him immediately. Is the car registered? Was the car registered in his name or something?
No. So they were able, I don't know if the car is registered in his name, but they were able to track the address to, based off the plates that from the video that was, I guess it's like a storefront there, that caught all this. And you can see her cross it. Unfortunately, she was not at the crosswalk, but you can see the moments up until the incident.
Wow, it's just a sad situation, and there are people who are up in arms over this, and recently there've been several vehicle hits. Yes. So people really, as we getting warmer, people really need to be very cognizant of the fact that people are driving sometime under the influence, and that report doesn't say anything about him being under the influence or anything of that nature.
It doesn't. It would be hard because it was hours later when they found him to know if he was under the influence. He is being held at Gander Hill right now on a $55,000 cash-only bail. But I will say this also. The drivers right now are very reckless. They drive at a very high speed throughout the city. One of the things to just be very cautious of is if you are crossing the street, please cross at the crosswalk. And not, stepping out in between the cars. Again, it is very sad that we have lost a very young life here.
Yeah, our prayers go out to the family and we in the community, because we are seeing all of this stuff happening, and these are loved ones, people in the community. Someone asked me a couple of weeks ago, how do I view Wilmington? And one of the things I said is that it loves, and it loves hard. Sometimes some of the people that have power don't care too much for the people and the citizens of the city, but the communities, it's whatever, whether we have means, a lot of means or nothing, there's a great deal of love here. So we certainly will be praying for the community as well. Last but certainly not least, on my area there was a situation happened where a man has pleaded guilty now to a fatal shooting in Browntown.
Yes.
You know anything about that?
Yes. So again, at the time, the young man was actually a teenager when he committed the crime. And he was actually arrested when he was still a teenager, but I guess he just got his court date 2 years later. But in 2022, in May of 2022, so almost 3 years to the date, 20-year-old Yuquan Davis died from gunshot wounds, and the shooter was a 18-year-old who's now 20-year-old Darius Lloyd. Darius faces up to 35 years in prison under the terms of the plea bargain with a minimum of 27 years in jail. So again, two very young lives, altered for forever. One, unfortunately, is no longer here, and one is going to be behind bars. Lloyd pled guilty in Superior Court to 1 count, second-degree murder, 2 counts, first-degree robbery, 2 counts possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and his sentencing will be June the 27th. And again, that's in Superior Court. The Attorney General said that nothing can bring back Mr. Davis, and her heart goes out to the family. But the person responsible for Mr. Davis's death will spend a very long time in prison. And again, this comes after investigation by the Wilmington Police Department cold case unit.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the cold case unit is no longer cold. They are really working. They're really working. And I'm very grateful. Even last week when we talked about the private numbers that people can call and give videos, people are starting to really utilize the sources, and they're just getting tired of some of the violence that we're having and have had in the city. But I'm very grateful that the police department is really working. Can I just say this without getting in trouble, Coby? And if I get in trouble, I need you to help me. And that is, with a new administration come the reality that we were right.
Yes.
He was just not fit to serve over humanity. And for those individuals who may be friends with him and feel like, that's not nice, Pastor Curry, you shouldn't say things like that. We got another administration, and I'm not sure who all supported, Mayor Carney, but the previous administration, just all he cared about was buildings and cover up and buildings. People were dying, and now we're seeing that the police department are doing things this early in the administration and being transparent. Mm-hmm. Now we may have some other days when things are not as transparent, but right now they are. And I think we should continue to speak well and thank God for them. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to get to Coby's Corner, because that's where all the juice is. And that's where all the excitement is going on with this crazy, I better be careful, with this crazy president that y'all got going on here. We'll be right back. And we're back. Coby, what's going on? So let's get some fire going.
Yeah. So first off, I want to talk about what is going on here in America and how we're having some negative impacts all across the world, right? So one, stock markets are down.
Yeah.
The stock markets have taken a tumble, and it's based off of the recent tariffs that President Trump has put in place on pretty much most of our trading partners. And again, the stock market, it ended April 7th, which was this Monday. It ended 350 points lower than ever before. The largest drop since the economic comeback in 2008, right? This is, again, not a trade war that people really want to be involved with. The stock market is heading towards crashing completely, which means we may be going into a recession. And it's on local governments and state governments to start planning for that as well, too, because we are extremely close to going into a recession as early as June.
Wow.
So again, that is very scary. But I want to talk about the tariffs right now and why things are about to go up. If you go on Fabletics, which is an American clothing brand owned by one of the Citrus owners, they now, if you get things shipped to your house, they have a line over there that says tariff markup to let you know how much the tariffs are increasing your prices. So for an average pair of shorts, right now, I'm trying to get my summer wardrobe together. It's an additional $14 for the tariffs. And this is on an American company. This is going to hurt them. President Trump hit 34% tariffs on China. China said, okay, we could do the same thing to you, and matched in kind 34% on us. Trump said as the last show, it popped up on my screen as we were talking, and I talked about it live. Trump said China wants to make a deal badly, but they don't know how to get it started. So his response to China putting 34% tariffs on us was to put additional new 50% tariffs on all goods, all retail goods from China. Mm-hmm. Again, this takes that total up to 104% tariffs on China, adding the 20% that was already there and has been there for a very long time. So again, this is going to hurt the middle class. It's going to hurt the lower class. Mm-hmm. But the billionaires, two of Trump's biggest funders, first, Ken Lang-won, who is the CEO or former CEO, but one of the founders of Home Depot, a mega donor to the Republican Party, a mega donor to Donald Trump, has come out multiple times saying that this is BS. These tariffs are stupid, and that Trump needs to roll them all back. And he was not the only mega billionaire who has come out and spoken out. Ken Griffin, who is the 80% owner of Citadel LLC, which is a multinational hedge fund. He's worth about $42 billion. He's from Florida. He has come out and said that not only will this tariffs hurt the economy, it also is going to crush the middle class, which is going to slow the economy, which is going to affect their impact of making money in their investments as well, too.
And that's when I thought he was going to just roll everything back. When all the billionaires, it's one thing to say you crushing the middle class, but when you start seeing these billionaires who supported the Republican Party, that's why I don't understand why the legislators, not the Senate, but the Congress, why they won't stop him. I mean, they have the power to do this.
They do.
But they'll let them just do what they want to do. I don't understand it.
And one of the things with that, they did vote recently to roll back the tariffs on Canada, but nowhere else. So yes, they do have the power to do that anywhere. But again, this is what you get when you have a president who says he's a billionaire, probably just a millionaire, doesn't know how to manage his money, doesn't know how to manage his funds, is really only thing that he is an expert is tax evasion and tax fraud, and not paying his workers for their money or for their work. So again, this is what you get when you have someone who inherited millions of dollars. Right. He really pulled himself up by the bootstraps by getting a nice $1 million grant, because he didn't even have to pay it back to his dad, grant from his father to start his business. And now this is what we have to deal with, right? So again, Trump is known to be a fraud.
Yes,
very much. At the Trump Foundation, Trump University, all these things. And now he has free reign with our economy.
With anger.
In anger, yes.
Rebellion. It's sad. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you only because I just hope all of you who are watching us would just hear this. It's going to get horrible. I said in a meeting, I just want to, while you're still preparing, I said in a meeting yesterday, and the people who were meeting with me said they were very grateful because one thing, East Iron Fair doesn't have any grants, okay? And I pride ourselves on that, but I know like the Urban League, they got to work off of grants, and I understand that for those who are doing great work in the community. But one of the things that they have shared with us is that we don't have to now prepare any differently than we had to prepare in the past because most of our money comes from the donations of the membership and some private money. But really, you said something a few seconds ago that everybody needs to start paying attention to, and that is this. If you have government money, it's now time to restructure your organization because he stopped 19 trailers from coming to Delaware just for the food bank. He's going, and Delaware may be a target because of what Biden, how he disdains Biden. I mean, to a level that I've never seen before. Every time he talks, it goes back to something with Biden. So I think we do need to be very mindful of those who are serving the community and trying to help those who are less fortunate. You really need to spend some time restructuring and finding other means because it's going to get really bad. Yeah.
And, you know, one of the things that I'm happy about with all the nonprofits that I sit on a board with that receive any type of government funding, we were never 100% reliant on government funding. We diversify our funding, and I encourage a lot of people to diversify their funding streams. I will say the vast majority of Black-run, African-American-run nonprofits are very reliant on one or two grants, usually from some sort of government entity. And right now we're dealing with cuts from the federal level. But that could also impact state funding. That could also impact local funding. How? Because now we have to fill in the gaps of some of the healthcare, the SNAP benefits and stuff like that. So that money may get pulled back on how much they can give out to the community. So just on that point, you always have a learning opportunity, and this could be a learning opportunity for a lot of people, even though I know it's going to hurt, but try to diversify your funding streams. But on top of that, what Trump is doing right now, defunding food banks, again, it hurts Delaware. It hurts our senior fee program, right? But I'm going to take Delaware out of it. Alabama, Mississippi, Iowa, Kansas, and Nebraska have the largest populations dependent on food banks that got cut.
They hear people.
Well, Democrat hasn't won Iowa since Obama, second term, 2012. So it's been 13 years, over a decade. Mississippi, Alabama, Nebraska outside of 2nd District 2, Kansas, all those states, a Democrat hasn't won there federally in I don't know how long, since Carter probably. So again, if he's trying to get back at the Democrats, he's hurting his own base.
I don't think he care. I think he's wounded to a place where he believed everybody turned on him. When he was going through those lawsuits, he was losing money. No one cared about me because that's what a narcissist does. He or she puts everything in themselves and say, y'all didn't support me, even though y'all voted for me to get power. Now that I have the power, I'm just going to just do a blanket hurt. Because when he started tariffing our friends, I knew then he can care less. He can care less about everybody. And that's just sad. What happened with the Israel thing? Did he take the tariffs off of Israel, the 34% he had on them?
No,
I couldn't really watch it because I've been trying not to pay attention to CNN.
They're still debating it. I know Netanyahu was at the White House to meet
I saw that.
with them, and they had a nice warm reception for him, but not Zelensky when he was here from Ukraine. So Probably soon they will be making announcements, but as of right now, they are still on.
And he and not who, however you say his name. He personally, yeah. No, I'm talking about the
Prime Minister
Netanyahu. Yeah, he gave him a lot of accolades. He was just feeding to his ego, and that's why I turned it off, to be honest with you, because it was just getting on my nerve. But I will say to you, this is just not good. It's not good. Yeah. Good. I'm sorry.
But again, my next point I wanted to talk about, with everything going on with Donald Trump, there has been a lot of national protests all across the nation. And this past weekend, it was no difference. On the 5th, there was a protest called Hands Off, where over 1,300 individual rallies were held all across the nation in all 50 states, and all the territories as well, too. The main one was down in D.C., but we saw 4 held here in Delaware, one in Wilmington, Newark, Dover, and Rehoboth. And people came together to say, keep your hands off of Social Security, keep your hand off of Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, keep your hands out my pocketbook, whatever. People were fired up. And it shows that now people are taking to the streets, and you need that momentum going into the midterm elections. And it's starting very early. It's not even summertime yet, and people are already fed up. So again, we need to direct that energy. We need to make sure that we are holding our federal electeds accountable. Ours here in Delaware have been doing a very good job. But also, we have friends up in PA who need to hold theirs accountable. And if they can't, then get them out of here.
That's right. And I said that last week too, because I was a supporter of my brother,
Fetterman got to go too.
He got to go.
But they're saying, hands off of my neighbors. Stop these mass deportations. We are seeing they use the federal government and federal agents to kidnap people who lead protests, right? Just to let y'all all know, I was born right here in Newark, right at Christiana Care. I'm an American citizen. So if they take me and try to say I'm Dominican or something, don't believe them. But this is what is happening to people who are leading the protests, especially individuals who led protests during under the Biden administration when it comes to Palestinian rights.
And I was going to ask you about that, because this is disgrace how they're revoking, because a person have spoke out in any way or participated in any way, they're revoking their visas, and this is just really ridiculous.
It is the very core of our democracy and of the fabric of this country. Even when we were not all equal, the one thing that stood out was you had the right to freedom of speech. They made it our First Amendment right, not second, third, fourth, fifth. They made it our First Amendment right for a reason, and it applies to everyone.
Yeah, but see, that was the real issue with the Republicans when they were going after those college presidents. College presidents, all they were saying was people have that First Amendment right.
Correct.
They weren't saying what they were saying was right, but they demonized them so bad and created such a great hostility, and that they made it become like, oh, well, you opening your mouth against Israel, so therefore you are anti-Semitism. This is ridiculous. It's starting to anger me more and more and more.
And one of those people who led that fight was Bill Ackman, who got the first Black woman, Claudia, fired from Harvard, who is a super donor to Donald Trump. But again, he's losing a lot of money right now. So this is the only benefit of it. I want to see him. I want to see his pockets suffer.
Although what he could lose, we still will never make.
Right.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
He is worth $8.9 billion still. But again, all these super wealthy, ultra rich people who wanted to pour this money because they thought they was going to get rich. Donald Trump don't care about none of y'all but himself.
Absolutely.
And now they're all complaining about, oh, this is hurting our bank accounts. Well, how do you think it feel for us? And that's what these protests were about. People were angered. This one lady who was a little older, She said, I can't even throw eggs at the White House right now because they cost too much. And that made me chuckle. That was a happy moment there. But again, the sign that stuck out to me was a young girl who benefits from Medicaid, who had a sign that said, hands off my wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
And again, her funding is in danger of being cut right now. So again, just even if you don't believe in the politics side of it,
it's a humanity side.
It's a humanity thing, and you have to have a moral compass at some point in time to say this is just inhumane. Which
leads to my question to you: did you go to the marches?
I did.
Yeah, and I heard that they were very well attended.
They were.
Was Mayor Pazicki there?
No. When he goes to these protests, it usually turns violence, and things get broken into. And like the one he spoke at, very similar to Donald Trump. In January 6th. The one in 2020 that Mayor Pazicki spoke at is the one in which people rioted in the city of Wilmington and everything. Yeah. But again, words have power. And I guess Pazicki just was speaking out, not really knowing how to connect with his community.
Yeah, well, he didn't have a First Amendment right, according to his leader. I asked that question because I just want to know, where was he? Where is he? What's going on? Why is he not there? This is a good thing.
He's happy. His best friend, Donald Trump, is in office again.
Well, we're seeing that. And where's your governor elect for a couple of weeks? Where is she? Was she there?
She's back down D.C. doing some type of consulting work. But as we've pointed out before, she has done some work. She was actually at the inaugural ball and everything with them.
And she could have been y'all mayor, y'all governor. Pray for y'all. Now, this is I'm gonna end my conversations on this, but saying this, and I'm gonna look at the camera and say this to every person who listened to some of the foolish, egregious-minded people who said, don't vote. I ain't voting for none of them. I'm going to sit home. It's your fault. There are elected leaders we have in the city council right now who made those egregious comments. Don't vote. I ain't voting for none of them. I hope they're silent now because you're the reason why we're in the predicament that we're in now. That's it from Pastor Curry. I said it. I'm here to represent it. And I ain't taking it back. I'm sorry, Coby. I'll give you an extra 2 minutes of your time.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Because that pissed me off when it was said, and it still bothers me today. Mm-hmm. They are the reasons why Donald Trump was there. Because she didn't lose by, even though the electoral count looked like it was a whole lot, she ain't lose by a lot of votes. No. But the reality of it is very clear that people decided that, I ain't vote for neither one of them. And they're the reasons why he's there, more than the ones who supported him. Go ahead.
Next, I want to talk about some local stuff. So, here in Delaware, there has been a bill introduced, Senate Bill 10, which is being sponsored by Senator Brian Towson and Representative Speaker of the House, Melissa Minor Brown. And this bill is a compassionate release bill. It was actually the last piece of legislation that me and my dear friend Richard Mouse Smith was working on before he passed away. And they didn't tell anyone that they were going to be bringing it back this year. And to be honest, with everything going on at the beginning of the year, it wasn't even on my mind to start pushing for this bill yet. I was going to wait until next year. And they sent me a copy of it. And at the top of it, it says the Richard Mouse Smith Compassionate Release Bill. Yeah. And again, this would expand eligibility for the criteria for those who qualify for compassionate release. A legal mechanism that allows certain incarcerated individuals to seek early release under very set circumstances. Right now, it only allows for sentence modifications to be applied for good cause. And that has to be filed with the DOC, which is the Department of Corrections. But then this changes it for medical illness. Also, if an individual who is age 60 or older who has served 15 years of their original imposed sentence and has been rehabilitated. And then, of course, they have the definition for rehabilitated. And individuals who have served at least 25 years of the originally imposed sentence and who have been rehabilitated would be able to qualify for this process. This, again, expands it more. This is something that we didn't have, especially during COVID. When we went into COVID, that's when we really started pushing for this. But again, Mouse, who passed, earlier this year, had always pushed for this. He was a huge fighter for criminal justice reform. And, once he got onto something, he believed it. He stood 10 toes down on it. Whether he was right or not, if he believed it, he was he'll have the debate with you and still go about what he said. But again, he had been pushing for this bill with Senator Towson, with UD Professor Yazir Payne, with Structural Equity, Center for Structural Equity CEO, Daryl Wolfie Chambers, to get this done. So I'm glad to see it finally come forward and be introduced. And I hope that this is passed very quickly. As of right now, a ton of co-sponsors have signed on. That's a good sign. But hopefully it continues to move quicker.
Good.
And then lastly, I just want to talk, it is still budget season. We're still having budget hearings every Monday and Wednesday for City Council. Starting at 4:30, goes until about 8. We do about 2 departments per day. But also next week, we're going to be having a special community development and urban planning meeting. That is I call it CDUP. That is when we are going to talk about the zoning regulations for the issuance of licenses for marijuana here in the city of Wilmington and where they can go. Again, this has been a very hot topic, and I encourage everyone to come out and give their input on it. It will be Wednesday at 5:30. I believe we'll be in the committee room right next to the chamber, but it's still on that ground level floor. So I encourage everyone to come out and give input on that. Again, this has a lot to do with how we want our city to be, to handle this. We've heard from a ton of people, oh, y'all just let liquor stores go everywhere. Well, this is why we have done this process in the way we have done it, to make sure that we don't have an oversaturation like we do with liquor stores right now, which has a moratorium on it.
Thank the Lord.
Currently. So, and as they close down, no new ones have opened. So that's what that means with the moratorium. But again, outside of that, the budget season is going good. I will say one of the things I want to highlight from our meeting the other day was we have revenue projections in finance department, which is the expenditures, where our money's going. I talked about the fact that there is a proposed 6.5% water and sewer tax, or 6% water and sewer tax increase, and a 6.5 stormwater tax increase. We talked about how much additional indirect funding comes out of that budget. That's why they keep increasing it. But I also had another point about just equity, right? When we're going to be raising our taxes, I feel as though if we know there's individuals who are not paying a fair share of their taxes, we should make sure that we're doing everything in our power so that they can have to pay their fair share. As of right now, there is a company here in the city of Wilmington that is getting 10 to 15-year tax abatements. And again, tax abatement is a reduction of how much taxes you may owe that you have to pay on, right? 10 and 15 years, that really makes us have to make up for the differences with city services and funding and everything, which again, puts more money on other people. With that tax abatement as well, it is paired very nicely with these reassessments that just happen for certain companies where their properties, where they put out $50 million to build, but they were assessed at $25 million. So the taxes that they do have to pay is even lower because they were under assessed, even though properties like my house was over assessed, which means I'm going to have to be paying more in taxes, like the vast majority of the city of Wilmington. On top of all of that, thanks to Councilwoman Maria Cabrera last year, who passed a cap at 50 units. You only have to pay for the first 50 units of your rental building and then once you hit that cap, or the $5,000 cap, then you don't have to pay anything else for the rest of them. So again, the mom and pop landlords,
Right.
they got to pay regular price for all their properties because none of them have a 50-unit building in the city. And why do I know not a single one of them have one? Because there's only one entity that has buildings that have over 50 units in it. And if you see the bill's sponsor and when she introduced it, and you look at when her campaign finance report comes out, if you look at when all those donations came in from that one entity's from the one family and the brother and his family, and then all the workers there, the top heads and their family, even some kids who aren't able to donate, somehow their names are on that when they gave a little extra money. This bill was able to get through. So again, it shouldn't matter how much money someone gives you, because in state of Delaware, you can only have a $600 max out for the seats that we sit in right now. Statewide is $1,200, and federal has their own regulations. So $600, you have a council person selling their soul out, and it's costing you more. Let me just explain that one more time. It's costing you more because she's getting a nice $600 check. I will be introducing legislation to remove that cap and make sure that we have equity in our city, making sure everyone's paying their fair share across the board. I call it a small business piece of legislation, because we should not be catering to corporations that are making millions and millions off our city, while mom and pop shops are having to bear the load of that.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I would ask that you make sure you're doing, do your due diligence and get with your council members who you think can support that, because what's going to happen is and now they're going to hear it. So as soon as they hear it, they're going to be trying to pay others.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the reasons why it got passed is because they had their 7.
Yep.
They had their 7. There was no issue. I know there are certain people on your on the council now who's not going to go for it, and I believe I know 7 who won't go for it. But I just want to make sure you do your due diligence, because I know they're going to just immediately try to find a way to make sure that does not come up, that does not pass. But that is pro business. That's pro small business. Yep. And I think that if I have to pay sometimes people get confused. Well, if a person has 50 units, they got to pay, let's say $1,000, and a person who has 1 unit may have to pay $50. They're saying, well, there's no comparison. No, you got to go off the percentage, because the reality of it is, if you're going to give a cut to the person who has 50 units, you got to be able to get that same cut to the person who has 1 unit. Yep. And that's really what you're trying to say. If we're going to give cuts, give it across the board. Don't give it to certain people and they know, you say there's only one organization?
One organization.
Oh, wow.
You could line up almost when the donations came in.
Wow. And I don't think you shared clearly is that even though you said selling their soul for $600, no, they got several people to give that $600 to make it feel good and look good and do those things. So that's just really sad. You know, Coby, we're living in an interesting time, but now that all these cuts are coming in, we're going to see how things really turn out and how they're going to respond to some of the stuff that is going on. I think I get hats off to the state of Delaware, because they've been pretty conservative with their spending. So I don't think we're going to get hit so badly this year anyway. Right. But we got another 3 years to go.
No, it's going to be a long haul now.
I just don't know which way we're going to be going. But I just hope and trust that people are paying attention to the fact that, honestly, there's going to be some cuts. And with Trump dealing with all of this immigration situation, some of the jobs he even want to come back, Coby, a lot of Americans don't even want those jobs. It's hard for us who are, first of all, nobody wants to pay any money. I mean, when you all fought for the $15 increase, the $15 minimum wage, that was almost like cutting teeth out of people's mouths. So now they try to bring back these jobs, and you got the union supporting them. I just don't know what's going on. Everything is just loopy right now. I just don't know what's going on. Maybe you can give me some therapy.
I mean, it's sad. So you look at Florida right now and you talk about the jobs that, they said they wanted to get rid of the undocumented population for, and that Americans were going to go back out and work out in the orange fields and all this stuff. Florida is in such a shortage right now, and also in housing development as well too, building the houses down there. You had whole developments have to stop. they're in such a bad predicament right now. They are rolling back their child labor laws so that kids can go out there.
I did see that.
Because first off, Americans can be lazy. And they don't want to do jobs like that. But then also on top of that, they don't want to do it at those wages, right? You look here in Delaware, we were able to get to the $15 minimum wage. But the way prices are right now, you need a minimum of almost $27 at this point, right? To barely scrape by. You have to bring in close to $100,000 a year after taxes to live comfortably in Delaware.
And that's unheard of.
That's unheard of.
That's unheard of. I just pray, and we hope that we all will be able to come together. At some point, these protests have to also turn to some action plans too. And I just, what can we do to get Congress to speak up and stand up and be counted?
It's enough of them down there that if they want it,
well, I know that's the,
if they want it, a senator can stand up there, and if they could only talk for 8 hours, 3 a day, and just keep rotating it and hold up all business, no more passing laws, especially when they're trying to get these tax cuts done, so that this tax cut bill, so that they can give money to all their super wealthy billionaires and make them happy for the money that they're losing right now. We really have to put pressure on them. And I think they need to channel their inner civil rights, John Lewis, and start getting in some good trouble down there.
Yeah, them days are pretty much gone. But we do got to figure out a way, because it's going to get worse. And even with the tax cuts, I mean, if you ain't got the workers, if you don't have the business coming in, is it really going to even help? I think this is why some of those billionaires have decided to start talking, because they're seeing that their dollar's really going to get in trouble. Earlier in the show, you talked a little bit about the stock market. And the stock market right now is at a place where if it crashes, it's going to create problems. I mean, it's going to create problems beyond Donald Trump control. He can roll it back, but if he roll it back too late, it's going to create some major problems. So I don't know. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Well, we're back. Well, Coby, it's interesting. I made some predictions last show, and they all were wrong. I thought that the Final Four was going to be super. It was very entertaining though, and it was very good. But Duke, I wish I can just call down there and have a conversation with them. They won every quarter. At the end, they celebrated and just fell right apart. But what I learned about Houston is that they don't quit. No, and they wanted it. And again, Houston, they were the overall number 1 seed in the tournament. So they felt some type of way to be the underdogs as being the number 1 seed. And you know what? Duke, again, I thought they had it. Yeah. I really did. Up until that last minute, I thought they still was going to be able to pull it off. But Houston was able to stay composed, stay playing, stay focused. And Duke let it go. It was their game to lose, and they lost it. They did. And that's all I can say. So I was wrong. I'm willing to admit it. And then we get to the championship game. Yeah. The exact same thing Duke did, Houston did. Yeah. But what got me the most is the last, 12 seconds of the game where the point guard was getting ready to shoot, but I don't know what he was thinking. And he knew he couldn't pick that ball back up, because then it would have been a walk. Yep. But I just don't understand how they lost that one. They won all the quarters except until the end. People get very excited, right? They went in as the strong favorites to win. They were up. They were feeling good. Florida, and I will say I was wrong, because I said that Florida would make it to the championship but wouldn't win. Right. But Florida ain't give up. They kept going. Florida had a very energetic front court and back court, honestly. Their back court really depended on their star player, if whether or not he would be okay after that tumble he took in the Elite Eight. Right. But he did not show signs of any stiffness or bruising and everything. He played his heart out. And again, they brought it home. Yeah, they did, and I'm not happy, but we got to live with it.
And Florida, University of Florida, is the only team to have 3 NCAA football championships and 3 NCAA basketball championships. Yeah. Only school out there.
Yeah, well, hats off to them. And then finally, my prediction was wrong again with the women.
So I did call this one. I feel good about this one. The 2 teams I predicted both made it. Yeah. But like I said, Paige and Gino were going to go out on top. I truly believe Gino's probably going to retire after this. So he wanted to go out on top. Coach Stanley, Dawn Stanley, is amazing coach, one of the best in the game ever. So for those 2 to go at it yet again, this is a rematch of 2022 where Dawn won. Now Gino has his win. Gino will always go down as the most championships, but he has that one mark that he lost to Dawn. So again, I think it's very humbling that they. And
I believe he did hold on so that he can get this and then walk away. I believe at this point. Well, Coby, I will continue to predict because it's based on what I believe is going to happen. But I did not do well this last time. Well, is there anything else on your agenda that we need to cover for this show?
That's all I have for today.
Really? Well, I want you all to be safe. I want you all to be sound. I want you to be wise with your money. And the things that you used to just throw away and not eat because you had so much abundance, now is the time to start reconsidering and living within your means, because tougher times is going to be coming. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to scare anyone, because I'm one of the people who like to bring encouragement. But tougher times are coming, and Trump really doesn't care about anybody but himself. And I believe at some point he will be stopped. And I'm not sure when. And I'm not talking about like assassination and things of that nature, because I don't believe in that stuff. But what I do believe in is that something is going to be able to break. And I hope that it breaks soon before the country is. Mm-hmm. We're strong. We're very reliable people, but this is a little scary. Yeah. It's a little scary. So until the next time we get together, may the Lord God bless.
Take care, y'all.
You've been watching The Sword with host Dr. C.T. Curry and co-host Coby Owens. Tune in every Sunday at 5 p.m. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for the latest episodes.